Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Snape and I'm back with a brand new video. Today, guys, we're going to be doing the weapon tier list for Season 25. If you enjoy, though, like, comment, subscribe. But without further ado, man, let's jump straight into it. So, Season 25 weapon tier list is really going to be different this season. Of course, we have got a lot of S+ weapons. So, we have got an S+ tier list, and we do, obviously, only go down to D. I will try and be harsh as possible, and I will be as honest as possible. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you get a little bit toxic about, you know, my opinion, that's fine. You know, you got yours, I got mine. Let's do it. So, first of all, we got the 30-30. This weapon is actually disgusting. 130 with Skull Piercer, and then just in general, the damage this weapon is dealing this season is actually stupid. This gun is so damn good. If you have not been using the 30-30, then you've kind of been sleeping on it, because honestly, this gun can do so much damage. But like I say, if you find a Skull Piercer as well, chuck that on top of it, filthy. This gun has to go in S+. Honestly, hands down, has to be an S+ weapon, because I honestly, in my opinion, think it's probably a little bit too strong. Plus, you've also got the gold sniper stock available as well now, which will just make it even better. But yeah, guys, 100%, 30-30, S+. Moving into next, we have the Alternator. Love the Alternator. I think it's a great early game gun. I think it's so good and steady and honestly very accurate. At the end of the day, though, I don't know whether obviously it can go too high. I think at the end of the day, it does start to drop off as the game goes on. Obviously, in that sort of aspect of things, where I would put it then, I would probably stick the Alternator in B. I think B. Yeah, you could take it to late game, but at the end of the day, if you do, I think you are going to probably suffer in the long run. I don't think it's good enough to be using, especially as a late game, in my personal opinion. Moving into next, we've got the Bocek. Now, Bocek's obviously recently become ground loot this season, and of course, it did get a recent buff as well, making it even stronger and more viable. The damage you can do with this weapon with a frag grenade is silly. You know, it is so damn cool the way that, you know, you nail your Bocek shot, and then next thing you know, they walk into the building, boom, they are taking additional damage on top of that from the frag grenade. So 100% it needs to go higher. I don't think it's an S+ weapon, but I do believe that it is an S tier weapon. You do have to be good with this weapon, but guys, seriously, get that gun heated up with a frag grenade, and you're going to be doing silly damage. Chuck it in the hands of some pro like Mandy, and mental. Moving into next, we have the car. The car is such a sturdy, steady gun, and it is such a viable weapon. The car and the R99, in my opinion, this season are on a very, very similar level. They are both so consistent and strong. They honestly, it doesn't matter which one you take, they are both on a very similar level. So I really do think at the end of the day as well, you're also getting the option with the car of having light and heavy, two top options. You know, that's better than one option. So I think the car is an S weapon. Oh, do I think it's A? Yeah, S. I'm going to go with S. I think the car is honestly a good S weapon. Moving into next, we have the charge rifle. Now, the charge rifle, I don't tend to use this weapon very much at all, but I have watched a lot of the pros like K-Swinney and things like that use this weapon a lot in things like the ALGS and Pro League. And you know what? It is actually so damn good, especially with the select fire on it. It can do filthy damage. Obviously, at the end of the day as well, you know, if you get it off a drop and you land a headshot, you can knock somebody instantly. So this gun has such major potential, and you know what? I'm not a massive lover of the charge rifle, but this is going to make a lot of charge rifle fans, you know, very, very happy. And this weapon actually, in my opinion, has to go up, because the sheer damage it can do without even using it as a select fire, yeah, ridiculous. It is so damn strong, and like I say, you can knock straight away off drop. So I do think it has to actually be S. I can't believe I'm saying it. I think it has to be S. Moving into next, we have the Devotion. Now, if you're not running the Devotion as a ballistic main, then you are silly, because this weapon is just seriously broken. It has to go in S+. If you have it obviously fully attached, whether you've got, say, every single attachment as purple, you will get it turbocharged. And that is obviously going to automatically happen when you're using legends like Ballistic, who have the option to get a gold weapon when going into ultimate mode, therefore getting turbocharger. It is silly how strong it is. It is silly how good it is. It's so sturdy, so easy to use. You just hold it down and fire. Honestly, that weapon has to be S+, no questions asked. Moving into next, we have the Eva 8. Eva 8, when it first came out, blew my mind. When I saw how fast the fire rate was, I was like, that is silly. They did obviously do a little knockdown of the damage, which did make a difference, but the fire rate on this weapon is just so damn good. Especially in those bubble fights, you are going to be smashing it with an Eva 8. Even if you don't have a good bolt on it, even if you just have a white or a blue, it still fires like mental. 100% this weapon has to be, in my opinion, an S tier weapon. I don't think it's S plus because I actually think it sits in quite a sweet spot, but most definitely it has to be an S. Moving into next, we've got the Flatline. Now, I love the Flatline. I think the Flatline is a great weapon. You know, it's very reliable. It's always been a reliable weapon, but I don't think it is broken. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it sits in a nice sweet spot. Now, for my personal opinion, I am going to put the Flatline in A tier. I think A tier sits it very fairly. You know, the recoil pattern's not too hard to learn. The damage input on it is not broken. It's not overpowered. And of course, at the end of the day, the fire rate is not stupidly fast. So yeah, it's decent, but I don't think it's an S tier weapon. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot better weapons out there than the Flatline, and I think that's mainly the reason I'm kind of leaning towards more of an A tier than an S tier. I think A tier is a good spot for it. Moving into next, we've got the G7, and the G7 does some serious damage, man. This weapon is seriously strong. Now, you know, at the end of the day, it has always been a very strong weapon. You know, if you go back the last 2 seasons, it's always been getting used in those competitive competitions because of how much damage it was simply doing. And of course, it obviously had the attachment that gave you extra damage to your armor evos, which made it even more viable. That has now been taken away, but the weapon itself is still silly strong. And if you obviously run that with like a 3 times and you start getting your shots and you're nailing the bullet drop, you will do serious damage with this weapon. Where I believe it sits, I think I'm going to put it in S, because I think it takes a little bit more skill than something like the 30-30, which at the end of the day, if you have a skull piercer and they're standing still, 130 to the head, pop another shot in, they're pretty much dead. Whereas a G7, you need to land your shots. So that's the reason I'm going to lean towards that option rather than sticking it in S+. Moving into next, we've got the Havoc. Now, I like the Havoc, but the Havoc has obviously been taken down a lot. Obviously, it came out of the care package for this season to ground floor loot, and everyone thought, the Havoc's going to be the most broken weapon out there. The Havoc's not actually broken at all. I don't actually see many people use it because the charge up time takes simply too long. Maybe in the future, we might see them do what they've done with the Devotion, and they make it so that if it's got full attachments, maybe gold attachments, it can have the turbocharger effect. I think that could be a good additional to the actual Havoc, but at the moment I don't think it sits anywhere that viable. I would sit it probably in A tier. I think it sits very similar along the lines of the Flatline, where it's a good reliable weapon but it's not broken. Moving into next, we've got the Hemlock. Like the Hemlock, love the Hemlock. The burst on it is decent. If you start once again getting into the rhythm of your shots, you can do some serious damage. But once again, do I think it's broken? Do I think it's overpowered? I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it takes a lot more skill than most weapons because you've actually got a burst fire weapon. So you've obviously got to make sure you're hitting your target, make sure you're lining up those shots. But I actually think I put it on the same level as the Flatline and the Havoc, because I think at the end of the day, you know, it takes a bit of skill, not overpowered, and I think, to be honest, it's fairly balanced. You know, if you were going to change anything, maybe you change a small change, maybe to damage, but apart from that, pretty sweet spot. Moving into next, we've got the Kraber. There's no doubt about it. Kraber has to go S+. You know, it does the most damage in the game. If you land a headshot, 210, boom, see you later, I'll catch you in a little bit. You know, that's what we want from a care package weapon. That's what we want from the snipers. That's what we want from the Kraber. Yeah, whack it up there. Moving into next, we've got the L-Star. Now, the L-Star has dropped off. Let's be completely honest. The L-Star has dropped off a lot this season. It was no doubt the most run gun I've seen in console lobbies. When I played on console, everybody used it. It had to be P20's L-Star. Of course, they've done a lot of changes to it. It's pretty useless at long range now. And at the end of the day, it's more of a mid to close combat situation weapon. So at the end of the day, you're almost not going to be using it now for that range. You should be using it for the closer combat. But if you look obviously at the other care package weapons, energy weapons, I think, to be honest, it sits higher than the Havoc. I would rather have an L-Star over the Havoc. I am going to put it in S tier. I think it sits perfectly. I don't think it needs any changes. I think they found a good spot for it. Moving into next, we've got the longbow. Now, longbow, obviously, this season has had some more buffs. Everybody, if you have watched my videos before, never been a massive fan of the longbow, and I've always said, you know what, without Skull Piercer, it's useless. Boom, it's now got Skull Piercer. I believe it does 129 to a headshot damage, which is kind of crazy. But the fire rate is a little bit slow, but it is seriously good. There's been times where I am actually now dropping things like the Sentinel, because at the end of the day, if I get a gold longbow, which has Skull Piercer on, I'm going to do a lot more damage, and I don't have to warm up my gun, you know, and all this malarkey. You know, it's ready to go. It's ready to do some big damage. So for that reason, we do have to look at putting the longbow higher. I think I'd probably put it on the same level as the actual charge rifle. The damage it does is really, really good, and I think once again they found a good spot for it to sit in. I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's broken. I think it sits in a very well earned spot. Moving into next, we've got the Mastiff. Now, the Mastiff's dropped off, to be completely honest. It does a good damage, but when you look at like the EVA 8, that's where the real damage and the fire rate comes into play. You know, if I find a Mastiff, yeah, I'm not complaining. You know, early game, I'm hitting my shots. They're not going too badly. But of course, if you get a really bad shotgun shot with it, and say you get like a 14 damage, it takes a little bit too long for it to obviously get ready again. It's got a shorter magazine than, of course, things like the EVA 8. So I feel like for that reason, it has to sit a little bit lower. It's going to sit in A tier for me. I wouldn't put it any higher. Moving into next, we've got the Mozambique. Now, of course, Mosies come as a dual akimbo package, so we are going to be talking along those lines. But yeah, they are seriously good. I really do like them. I think the fire rate on them is really good, and at the end of the day, you can get quite good distance with them. There was a time where I honestly thought Mosies were going to go into meta. I was watching Effect from Alliance, and I was watching his rank streams, and he was very much enjoying playing them. I do think at the end of the day that EVA 8 is still the better option, so I think I'm going to stick them with the Mastiff, because I do feel like, you know, if I was landing a very close bubble fight, you're going to get more out of the Mastiff, but if it was a little bit longer range, I'm going to get more out of the Mosies. So that's kind of my mindset behind that one. Moving into next, we got the Nemesis. Love the Nemesis, great gun. Now, the Nemesis at the end of the day, is it overpowered is the question. I don't think it's overpowered at all. I think it sits once again in a very, very sweet spot. You're starting to notice probably in the list that we are starting to find more sweet spot for these guns. All the guns are starting to not be, you know, low tier. They're all starting to make their way up. It's the same with the Legends. They want to make all weapons balanced. So you're honestly, whatever weapon you pick up of a drop, you can run it all game. And that's definitely what's happening. The Nemesis has always sat in a really good spot for me. I actually think the Nemesis, in my opinion, because it does take a little bit of skill, it will probably sit in the S tier. The only reason I don't put it in S plus is because I think, once again, it takes a bit of skill. It's not the easiest weapon to use. Something like the Devotion, you just hold down the trigger and you can go crazy, and it hasn't got much recoil. Of course, the Nemesis has got recoil, it has got burst as well, and you do have to wait for it to obviously get to that faster fire rate from warming it up to there actually make it be ridiculously strong. So yeah, that's the only reason I'm kind of putting it a tiny bit lower, is because I'm just going to go off of the fact that it takes a little bit longer. But when it comes to close combat situations, unless you're very skilled, you know, a lot of people struggle with it close range. Moving into next, we got a P20s. My goody. P20s are still out there. They are still broken. P20s, although they got their magazines taken down, guys, at the end of the day, they need a tweak to their damage, because they are just simply so damn good. It's a real shame, because obviously a lot of us walked into this season and thought, wow, maybe things will change. Maybe things will be a little bit different. Maybe the P2020s will not be so broken. But here we are. They still are. They have to go in S+. They are seriously strong. They do need a little tweak. I'm not going to lie. The fire rate on them, the damage on them, they're just simply too forgiving. Moving into next, we've got the PK. I mean, the Peacekeeper has to go in S+. You have to put it in S+. It's a care package weapon. The damage it can do from range with the precision choke is mental. And of course, once again, close combat. I mean, if I hit one good shot on you, you're taking over 100 damage, and all I have to do is hit one more good shot. It's really, really strong. Moving into next, though, we got the Prowler. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the Prowler, but I can see the power and the ability it has, and I think at the end of the day, it is such a solid weapon. You know, we got the burst, but also we do have the option to make it an automatic weapon with select fire on top of that. Yeah, it's good. It is really, really good. Now, where would I sit it? I think I'd probably sit it in the A tier as well, because it is a close range weapon. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you don't find that select fire, you're running it burst, and you can have some good gains of it. It doesn't have a massive magazine size, especially off a drop. So you only get like 20 bullets, so that's 4 bursts. And if you mess up 1 burst, you're not looking good. You're not looking healthy. But definitely towards the late game, if you've got the attachments, I think Prowler is definitely a good option, but it's difficult when there's other weapons like the car, like the R99, like the P20s that are out there that are so much better and stronger. Moving into next, though, we have the 301. Now, I'm going to upset some people here because I genuinely, I always say this, and I'm so sorry, but the R301 is just a pea shooter. And I really like the R301. Like, when I run it, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, man, I'm doing a lot of damage. And to be honest, you do a lot of damage, but you don't get many kills because it doesn't simply do enough. You know, I look at something like the G7 and the amount of damage I can do at range with it, whereas then if I have to shoot at long range with something like the 301, I'm not going to hit as many shots, and I'm also going to waste a lot of ammo. And if I do hit my shots, I'm not hitting much damage. You know, I'm hitting like a 20, a 10. There's nothing really worth doing. When it gets close and personal, you know, the hip fire is not too bad, but definitely is a mid-range weapon in my opinion. I feel like it sits, honestly, in B tier. Really sorry. Moving into next, we have the R99. R99, in my opinion, is a solid weapon. I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's S+. I just think once again, it's very similar to the car, where it sits in a really good sweet spot. And I don't think it needs any changes. Like I say, S+ is where I'm kind of looking. If they are not a care package weapon, they need a slight nerf. P20s need a slight nerf. R99, great spot. Don't think it needs changing. Moving into next, we got the Rampage. Now, we go kind of back to the whole, if you are running Ballistic and running Rampage, you're going to do a lot of damage. Now, of course, at the end of the day, you do have to heat this weapon up. You do have to have Thermites. You have to carry them. You have to have them ready. So that kind of needs to be played into the aspect of things. You know, I'm not just going to sit here and go, you know, oh, ramped up Rampage is brilliant, S+. Because when I have to use it without it, the fire rate's slow. The damage is not mental. I quite like it off of early drop because it's a nice, slow, accurate weapon. So, like, you know, if you're limited on ammo, it's decent. But you know, I'm not really looking to run this late game unless I'm Ballistic. I think it probably sits in... You know what? If you've got a Thermite, S. If you haven't, A. That's going to be my theory. So we're going to imagine we've got Thermite or a Ballistic. We're going to put it in S. Moving into next, we've got the RE45. I mean, the RE45 is just not really doing anything, is it? You know, the RE45 doesn't have a lot going for it. You could simply just say at the end of the day, it's good early game, but that's about it. Because you can get some good damage in a guy with white shield. That's really the theory behind it. There's no reason for you to take this gun any later than that. There's no such thing as hammer points anymore. You're not going to get anywhere. So, I mean, to be honest, I'll probably put that... Do you know what? I'm not going to lie. I think I'm going to do a little switcheroo here. 301, B. I'm going to put the alternator in C because I don't think... I think you can take the 301 to late game. I don't think you can really take the alternator to late game. You're definitely not taking the RE45 to late game. 100% not. So that's kind of my theory. Well, I'm going to spread out a tiny bit more, but yeah, that's my thoughts. Let's go to the last few weapons. We've got 5 left. We've got the Sentinel. Sentinel, brilliant weapon. Charge it up. Mental damage, and of course, once again, it's just like that sort of weapon you use to give you that almost that Call of Duty feel. I used to, like, when I used to run it, like, it feels like I'm like quick scoping all the time. You can hit some really sexy shots with a Sentinel, but the damage it can do as well when it is, of course, charged up is nutty. You have to be putting it on the same level as a longbow. Honestly, if there was an option to have a hop up that made it charged up all the time, then it would be S+. That's the only reason why, but you have to charge it up, so I'm going to keep it in S. Moving into next, we have the Spitfire. A lot of people really like the Spitfire. I'm personally one of those people that I enjoy it early game, but I'm never taking it late game. I could see the benefits of taking it maybe as a rampart or anything like that, but I don't see the reason behind taking it any further than the early to mid game, to be honest. There's a lot of light weapons out there that can do a lot more. I mean, honestly, it's going to be a hard decision. You know I've heard people already say Spitfire's S+, but for me, I'm putting the Spitfire in A. I think, you know, it's a very good, strong weapon, but I just feel like there's a lot better weapons out there that I would rather take, you know, than the Spitfire. Early game, mid game, yes. Late game, don't really want it. I don't. I simply don't. Moving into next, we got the triple take. I mean, triple take, crazy damage to headshots, crazy like hip fire. You know, you've got crazy as well fire rate. There's just a lot going for this weapon. The poke damage this gun can do. You know, if you're trying to get a 4K and you see a triple take it, because even if you can't hit the charged up shot, you hit it with obviously those 3 bullets, you're going to get even more damage wrapping up. This is a great way to burn people's heals and also to get those knocks, because the headshot damage, once again, is crazy good. So yeah, 100% S+. Last 2 weapons, we've got the Volt. The Volt, a lot of people are like, oh, the Volt's really good, but I look at what I've put in S, and I would say like the Car and the R99 are better than the Volt, personally, in my opinion. I feel like their fire rate is better, and the damage and the ease to use the Volt is easier. It's easier. It's an easy weapon to use, but there's just so many better options out there. Like there is. The Volt, in my opinion, just doesn't bring enough. So that's the main reason why. I think if it brought a little bit more, maybe more damage potentially, or maybe fire rate, then yes, fire rate could be a fair point. But definitely damage-wise, yeah, I think it's the fire rate that lets it down, not the damage. The fire rate is where it's kind of maybe could be better. And then last but not least, we've got the Wingman. Now, of course, Wingman's got Scully. It's back. Now, of course, you need to be good with the Skull Piercer to actually, you know, benefit from using the Wingman. You know, the Wingman Skull Piercer does a lot of damage, but you have to be accurate. So in the right hands, loads of damage. In a low skilled level player's hands, not much damage. I love using the Wingman, in the first round of arenas, because it's so much good for damage early game. But obviously, you know, if I'm playing a ranked game or a pub match, I barely use the Wingman, because I know in those sort of fights there's no forgiveness if I miss them. So I feel like I'm going to stick it in A, because I think the skill to use is harder than the weapons in S. That is my tier list. Wow. You know what? We flew through that. Just over 20 minutes. Love to see it. So yeah, guys, that's what I'm sitting at. That's what I'm thinking at. Nothing actually made it into D. I didn't even know if I was going to put anything in D, and it just turned out I didn't need to. I didn't really need that section, but you know, it gives you an idea if there was something in my mind. But this is crazy. This is how it's getting, you know. Everything's becoming more balanced. Everything's now starting to hit the top tiers of the tier list. It's crazy. It's awesome. I love seeing all these weapons now start to be more viable. As you can see, maybe some of the, in my opinion, the lower light weapons, Alternator, and of course the RE could use some loving. R301 could use some loving. But apart from that, that's honestly, I think it's solid. But yeah, guys, let me know everything in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Honestly, it doesn't matter. But if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, because it really helps with the algorithm. Comment down below your thoughts, and please subscribe, your notifications on that way you never miss an upload. I did do a Legends tier list last week. I'll put it in the outro. So if you want to watch that, 100% do, because why the hell not? But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.